Gracias, Señor Presidente. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very true what has been said this morning in his introduction by CDSEC. The situations and the problems differ from one continent to another. However, it's also true that increasingly there are commonalities. What I want to argue in my contribution is that there is emerging a new worldwide contradiction. It's not anymore the contradiction within Latin America between large corporate farms and peasant farms. It's not anymore only another contradiction within Europe between large and small farms. It's now a worldwide contradiction between large corporate farms that produce in an industrialized way and peasant agriculture wherever it is located. Here on the screen you have an image of a very large corporate enterprise. It's located in the Ukraine. It is having 18.6 million laying hens. It is producing nearly more than 6 billion eggs in 1 year. It recently obtained an export license to Europe, and it's able to flood Europe with cheap eggs, which is deeply affecting parts of European agriculture. At the same time, it's very remarkable. This echoes a little bit the arguments of my colleague, Professor Cochet, as well. This enterprise had a net loss in 2014 of nearly 30 million US dollars. In the last year, 2015, it had a loss of 158 million US dollars. This demonstrates, and this is a general issue, this demonstrates that economic efficiency is not the scope, is not the objective of this kind of enterprises. What they aim for is economic power, market shares, and the possibility to control the markets to their benefit. Yeah, that is key. Here you have another very large enterprise. It's the Van Oers enterprise. It's a global network. It's having satellites in the Netherlands, in Portugal, in Morocco, in Senegal, and in Ethiopia. Alone in Morocco, it's having 3 enterprises. One of these enterprises, you see the image of it, is having 1,200 hectares of horticultural production, irrigated horticultural production. That's outrageous. Nowhere you find horticultural enterprises that big. It's close to Tangier harbor, and the produce is within 24 hours in the harbor of Rotterdam. Yeah, they can control the European market increasingly. Having these satellites in different countries all over Africa and Europe, they have a year-round supply of vegetables. Yeah, and they become a very privileged partner of large retail. This seems to refer to one of the myths that has been, he was talking as the president, CDSEC, about myth and reality. This seems to refer to one of the myths that is generating employment. Here you see some other images of the same Van Oers enterprise that, by the way, has recently been taken over by a French enterprise, Agrial. The point is, this enterprise is having boreholes that go 200 meters deep. This is quite different from peasant agriculture in Morocco, who have the technique of making shallow wells and then horizontal tunnels to capture the water. Yet they go to 40 meters, 48 meters, but cannot go further. So there is a subterranean warfare going on. These large enterprises grasping the water, making dry the aquifers of peasant agriculture. So here they are outcompeting Morocco peasant producers. At the same time, by flooding the market of Europe, they are outcompeting European producers. You see how they create a new worldwide contradictions. And there is no happy coexistence whatsoever between this type of enterprise, the large enterprise, and the peasant enterprises, as is suggested in some political discourse. Here we jump to another example. It's from Latin America. This is from Peru. It must be familiar to you, to the lady from the Confederación Campesina del Perú. This is in quite close to it's in Piura, quite close to the community, the peasant community of Catacaos. Here you have on one side of this corridor, you have peasant agriculture facing scarcity of water. Everybody familiar with agriculture will see it. Yeah? Making holes in the land, put 2 seeds of maize in it, and then the scarce water is with a bucket put into these holes. It's a heavy struggle. On the other side of the same corridor, you have the abundance of water. This is the blue gold the lady was referring to. Yeah, it's accumulated as private property here in one of these huge new capitalist enterprises. It's a capitalist enterprise. The water is well guarded. The blue gold is really defended with arms. And it's used to produce all kinds of high-value products like asparagus, peppers, onions, grapes, organic bananas. And this is all exported to United States of America and to Peru. To Europe, excuse me. The asparagus, for instance, go by boat, deep frozen, but also by airplane. They go to Gdansk in Poland, where they are cut in pieces and put on deep frozen pizzas that go then to the west of Europe. Yet these are worldwide circuits. These enterprises connect places of poverty with places of richness. And get huge profits from it. They flood the European market with these very cheap asparagus. And you could ask, well, does this bring development in Peru? Does it bring employment? For every hectare, it has been calculated, every hectare within this enterprise means the loss of 15 to 20 hectares of peasant agriculture. Yeah, they create employment in one particular place, but they destroy even far more employment in other places. Yeah, this applied to Morocco, as I illustrated with the subterranean warfare. It applies here to Peru as well. It are hard clashes. Getting to a kind of summary, if you overlook the issue as a whole, and we've been documenting many of this in international group, many of these cases, you can come to the conclusion, not an ideological conclusion, but an empirical conclusion. Well, that corresponds with the discourse of many of us, of course, but I want to stress this as empirical conclusions. These large corporate agricultural enterprises, that threaten peasant agriculture. In the first place, they represent fragility. Yeah, for them, it's very easy to withdraw from agriculture and from food production at the moment it convenes them. Yeah, and this is in sharp contrast with the continuity of peasant agriculture. A particular detail here, the canals in this Peruvian enterprise are not made out of concrete, they are made of plastic. Yeah, so that you can easily move the enterprise to another location if it is more convenient. Yeah, and currently they are replacing indeed increasingly to China. They represent an industrialized way of farming, which requires a lot of energy, which requires a lot of sweet water, which requires a lot of pesticides, herbicides and other chemicals. Yeah, to put it differently, this is a way of producing that goes completely against the new scarcities we are facing in the world. They are less productive. It already has been argued, and I can only repeat it, per unit of land, per unit, per animal, per fruit tree, whatever you want, their production is lower, especially if you slot in the time dimension. Maybe the yield of cows is higher in 1 year, but taken into account that productive lifespan is only 2 years and then the animals are destroyed, it turns out to be a low milk yield as compared to cattle in peasant agriculture. It is, in the end, it's a destructive kind of agriculture that emerges. It emerges on both sides of the equation. It emerges, the destructive effects are as much in Europe as in Morocco, as in Peru, yeah, in synthesis, the destructive effects are both in the global north and in the global south. It is destructive in as far as destroys employment, and with it destroys local communities. It's destructive in as far as it destroys natural resources. That is what I wanted to say. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, President.